everybody, it is June 23rd, 2009, I'm Sonic Suns, and I'm here to talk about quite an event that's ongoing, quite a movement. The current election protests in Iran, naturally. The thing that I'm referring to, as I probably indicated by the title of this video, something that's been going on for, a little while now, and I haven't mentioned it yet in a video, and maybe I should do these things a little more punctually. A little more anyway. So, in case you don't follow the news at all, let me summarize. Iran had their presidential elections, and by the way, the presidential position is not quite the same as is in America. There's this other guy called the Supreme Leader, who's not elected, and who has more power, which gives you a bit of a clue of what sort of government we have in Iran, i.e. touch of tyranny here and there. And you're going to see more of this as we go. Like, for instance, there's this Guardian Council, I think it is, that, has to vet candidates before they're allowed to be voted for. And lots and lots of candidates get thrown out. We're not talking about just like a simple age requirement thing, There's thought of just people we don't like tend to get thrown out. Nevertheless, there is an election for the position of president, which is, that position has been filled by Ahmadinejad. That's that kind of nutcase guy you think of when you think of Iran. He denies the Holocaust, he's a jerk, so he's going up to get reelected. And his biggest opposition, a guy who gets to run, thankfully, is a guy named Mousavi, who himself is not a perfect guy, but he's so much better than Ahmadinejad. More reasonable and stuff like that. So they have an election with incredibly high turnout. And I'll probably put up a couple of links here for how the numbers work and such. And I've seen this from multiple sources of just, like, one of the things is that when turnout is high in Iranian elections, the opposition candidates, in this case Mousavi, and there are a couple other people, but mainly Mousavi takes the spotlight, those guys do well. And according to the officials, those guys lost. In fact, they lost by quite a lot. Ahmadinejad apparently won. Funny thing is, they announced the results like 3 hours after the polls closed. When there was a lot of people, and they're like voting, on paper ballots lots of the times. And then there were all these irregularities, like Mousavi didn't even win his own like hometown, which is possible in politics, but considering like, the statistics of the people that live in his hometown and how much they like him, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And then there were like 150 cities, according to Mousavi, where there were more votes than voters. I said according to Mousavi right there. Like, okay, so according to the government, that didn't happen. Actually, the government itself admits to 50 cities where there were more votes than voters. And they tried to suggest that people had gone to the other cities and cast their vote there, because you could do that theoretically. But some of these places are like in the flipping desert, and it's the flipping summer, and no one like goes on vacation to the desert city to vote there, especially not in giant numbers like we're seeing. And there's like over 600 formal complaints lodged by Mousavi against the whole thing. And did I mention that the Iranian regime is sort of somewhat tyrannical? All sorts of random rules. Trying to, I don't know. You try to respect cultural differences and stuff. But at least to us in the West, it seems like this touchstone of oppression when you have random crap like you cannot dance. Women must always have their heads covered and stuff. And that would be totally cool if like everyone just did that for the heck of it, because it's like their cultural thing. But when you can go to jail for this sorts of stuff, that's sounding wrong. And then when you manipulate an election, like, I'll show you the links to the people who did the statistics, and it was like, frigging no, something wrong happened here. Something very wrong happened here. And most likely it's because they rigged it so Ahmadinejad would win, when really Mousavi won. And then the people, the Iranian people, got fed up. And they've been protesting ever since. Huge numbers of them protesting. There actually a few protests in favor of Ahmadinejad. A lot of people in favor of Mousavi, which tells you something about those election results. Like, if we just count the number of people who are shouting Mousavi, shouting that Mousavi ought to have won, and then count the number of people shouting Ahmadinejad ought to have won, and particularly considering the government supports Ahmadinejad, and they have the whole state media. That's another thing. They run their media over there. Not much of a free press. Journalists, even from other countries, have had a hard time getting proper photos and everything. Which brings us to the other interesting aspect of this. The importance of the internet, which Iran is trying to lock down, but apparently they can't do it. Ha! People are constantly following Twitter. And all the news coming out of there just appearing people with, cell phones or whatnot. Getting past whatever blocks that the Iranian government is trying to throw up. Which is just a great sign when people are trying to, just throw blocks into your free press. Yes, this sounds like a dandy little government you've got here. But nevertheless, people are getting through. People are sending out info of random protests occurring, violence occurring, protesters getting beaten and stuff. A couple of them have died. And yet the people keep marching. Oh, crap. There's some serious passion here that we haven't seen for around 30 years when there was a previous revolution. I saw a headline story on CNN.com. It was whatever their biggest spotlight story is. You click on it and it was on Mousavi's Facebook page, at the very first line. I was like, wow. I've been having this thought sort of previously, and then this just kind of confirmed it, Facebook is sort of becoming an institution more than just a website. So many people are on Facebook, and so many things are compatible with Facebook applications written for Facebook. The Xbox is going to have a thing that works with Facebook. And then, the top line of the top story on CNN, Mousavi announces on his Facebook page, because it's the internet that's getting through, because regular journalists are having a crap of a time. Getting registered anyway as a journalist, and no, frick no, we don't want journalists in here. But the people, with the random cell phones and their cell phone cameras, aha! Information has a way of getting out. And I like that. In fact, I heard of the U.S. government asked Twitter to please stay up, they were going to go down for scheduled maintenance, but then they delayed the maintenance, and they're like, please keep delaying it because we want to give a voice to the Iranians.